Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Chris, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we're advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. For those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, be sure to say hi in the chat thread, like the video, and subscribe to the Unity of Fredericksburg YouTube channel. If you're able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room. You'll get the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Send an email to info@uofva.org to receive the Zoom link. And for everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Chris, and hello, everyone. Whether you're watching right now as we broadcast here on Sunday, August the 13th, or if you're watching later, we appreciate you being here and we appreciate your energy. So in 2023 here at Unity of Fredericksburg, we have a thread that we're following where we're talking about the foundations of unity. And in August, we are looking at Unity's approach to metaphysical Bible interpretation. So this is a chance for us to see some old stories in a new light. And whether you're into the Bible or not, I encourage you to give it a chance. So let me just review. Last week, we talked quite a bit about Unity's approach to the Bible. Let me do a quick review on that before we get into our story for today. So in Unity, we recognize that the writers of the Bible, particularly the Old Testament, these were ancient Hebrews. They wrote in the form of story, in the form of metaphor and allegory. So these are stories with great meaning, and they're not meant to be taken literally. In Unity, we see the Bible as the story of the evolution of human consciousness. And at the point of the individual, it's the story of the evolution of your consciousness, depending on where you are when you encounter the story from the Bible, whether you're hearing about it or reading about it. And also, we look at all of the activity that is taking place in the scripture as activity happening in consciousness. So rather than thinking of literal people and places, we see them as symbolizing thoughts, feelings, beliefs, attitudes, things like that. Also in Unity, there's no authority that is here to tell you what it means. What it means is up to you, in your heart, in your mind, in your consciousness. And we do have a tendency to kind of go through different steps as we look at scripture. We do start by looking at history and archaeology, like, was there an actual event like this? Was there an actual person? What can we do to inform ourselves that will give us some depth to the story? And then we also look at it with the value of language and literature. And then finally, we step into this realm of looking beyond the physical at the metaphysical and deeper meanings, what it means to us in our hearts, in our daily lives, right here and now. So that's kind of a quick recap. So let's give it a try. Today, our story is the story of David and Goliath from the book of Samuel in the Old Testament. It's 1 Samuel 17 is the chapter. So most of us, have actually, I would think almost all of us have an awareness of the characters, David and Goliath, because they really are kind of woven through our culture. But let's look at the story real quick in the Bible. It's a story of two armies. There are the Philistines and the Israelites. The Israelites are led by King Saul, and they're kind of teed up to do battle with each army encamped on a mountainside and a valley in between. And they're kind of in a standoff. The Philistines keep sending out their champion, who's this huge guy named Goliath, who does a lot of trash talking and taunting and things like that. And no one on the Israelite side is feeling up to going out and doing battle. So essentially, they're at a stalemate. And it's been going on for 40 days. And there's a young shepherd named David. He's not a soldier, but he has brothers who are soldiers. And so he hears about what's going on. He's been coming and like bringing supplies to his brothers. And he starts asking questions. And he comes to the attention of King Saul. And, he says, look, I feel like I can take the guy. And there's some discussion about it. And the part of the story that we all know for the most part is when David actually takes on Goliath, and with one strike from his slingshot is victorious. So that's the story in short. Now, when it comes to the history and the archaeology, there actually is no evidence that any of this actually happened or any of these were actual people, except for there have been found stone tablets that refer to King David. So anyway, we know about these characters from the Bible themselves, but there isn't actually any kind of, evidence. So we'll set that aside. We don't need to kind of dive into the geology of the place that it happened or all that kind of stuff. We're going to move into the realm of literature and legend. So the legend that we learn in our culture is a story about an underdog winning, right? And this really appeals to us, particularly as Americans. We really like that. Let's fight to the end. Who's the winner? And it's very much, it has that kind of, in Unity, we would call it that kind of victor consciousness of I win. The only problem with victor consciousness is that there must also be a partner of victim consciousness. And I don't think I need to tell you all that that's not the best space to be in. What we want to do is look deeper into this story beyond that underdog theme and take it to a level where we can really connect it with our divine nature, with our awareness of the universe and the energy of the universe, and see what this story has for us in our lives and in our hearts. So we're going to be looking at the metaphysical and what's interpretation, which is this all comes from meanings that were discerned by Unity founder Charles Fillmore and his team of people working with him. So we can actually look up names and places and words and see what they mean from a metaphysical, beyond the physical point of view. And we're also going to be doing some what's called maieutic interpretation. And that's when we really kind of bring it into our bones and bring it into our lives and our hearts. So we're going to go character by character. One of the approaches is for you to look at each one of these characters as representing an aspect of your life. Okay, so the first character, we've been talking quite a bit about the two main characters, but the first character we're going to start with is King Saul. So when you look up King Saul in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, the meaning is, and here's a quote, the will functioning in the limits of personality. Here's a little bit more from the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. The will should be anointed or inspired by judgment, but in its development, it often asserts its own initiative and is therefore thereby defeated in its leadership. So basically, this is when your ego is in the driver's seat, and it's all about what's important to your ego, to your human brain. So Have you ever been in that moment, friends? Just ask yourself that question. When you know you're not paying attention to your spiritual messaging, your ego is in the front seat. So Saul is there. He knows it's his job to lead his people into battle. And rather than looking at the guidance of his divine nature, he's all locked up in his personality. Now, when you look at the locations of the two armies in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, the Philistines are on one side of the mountain, on a mountain called Soko. And when you look up the meaning of that, it means entwined, hedged with thorns. So that side of the mountain is that energy of just really being locked up with whatever challenging circumstances are happening for you in your life, just all in that stuff, entwined with it. And then the mountainside where the Israelites are camped out, this is it's called a place called Elah, and it means oak, strength, protection. So these are the options that Saul has present to him, getting all entwined with the outer circumstances or leaning into the strength and the stability of his divine nature. And he's kind of stuck in between. He's got his head all locked up into what's going on in his human nature, and he can't make any progress because he is not willing to lean into his divine nature. And this has been going on for 40 days. So 40, the number 40, the metaphysical meaning of that is a time of testing or trial or purification. And that number 40 can represent, okay, it's time to complete that time of preparation and move on. So this is something that's been going on for a while. So right now, I'd like to ask you to just take a deep breath. Just quiet your mind, open your heart, listen to your gut, and ask yourself, have you ever been like Saul? Have you ever been essentially stuck between a rock and a hard place, where you're aware of the messages from your divine center, but you're not able to pull yourself away from the chaos that's going on around you? Your thoughts are all entwined with those outer circumstances. And you over and over and over again are being faced with the same circumstance, and you're not ready, or you don't know how to move forward. Have you ever been there? That's the energy of Saul. So basically, this shows you some kind of circumstance in your life. It could be a current circumstance. It could be something that you're reflecting on from your past. But I'd like for you to come up with an idea, with a circumstance from your life that you can continue to play with as we finish up this talk. So moving on, we're going to look at Goliath. Now, one rule of thumb when it comes to metaphysical Bible interpretation is that if there's a character that's a man, that generally represents thoughts. If it's a woman, that generally represents feelings or emotions. So here is some description when you look up Goliath in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. And I quote, "Ideas are not all of the same importance. Some are large and strong, some are weak and small. There are aggressive, domineering ideas like Goliath that parade themselves prominently, brag about their power, and with fearful threats of disaster, keep us frightened into submission to their unrighteous reign." So there you have it. Goliath is the energy of the trash talker, the boasting bully. Now, much is made in stories of his size, but when you look at across all religions and cultures, you always find stories of giants, right? There's always kind of a story of a giant, and how will we defeat the giant? In the story from the Bible, as I mentioned, there's been this face-off for 40 days. And what happens every day is the Philistines send Goliath out to the field, and he basically taunts the other side. does a bunch of trash talking, intimidates them, and nobody will come forward to fight him. So again, take a deep breath. Quiet your mind, open your heart, listen to your gut. So when it's time for you to make a decision, what thoughts and beliefs and attitudes might come out to taunt you? These might be old thoughts, old ways of being that think they know best based on how things used to be, like we always do it this way. You have to do it that way. What voices do you carry around in your head that come out to question you when it's time to move forward? Whose voice is it? Is it an old teacher, a family member? Is it your own voice questioning your own value? Before we're really ready to move on with challenging circumstances, it's important for us to identify the Goliath in our own story. And once we identify that, we can prepare ourselves to really make a change. Okay. So now we're going to move on to David. So when we look up David in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, it's defined with one word: beloved. And then it goes on to describe David as a type of Christ. Now, of course, we talk about in unity, we don't talk about Jesus as being the only person. We talk about the Christ as being a part of our divine nature, that each one of us is expressing this Christness. So they talk about David as a type of Christ, seen as a forerunner to Jesus. And in fact, they point out Jesus is born from the house of David. So kind of like that Christ-like energy in development before Jesus comes along. So in the story, David is not involved with the activity with these armies. He's a shepherd. He's busy tending his sheep. He's a younger brother. He's tending the sheep for his family. It's very clear that he's busy tending his prayer life also. He's very much involved with his spirituality and his belief. And he's running errands. His family is saying, okay, take these supplies over to your brother where the army is, and then come back and tend the sheep. So he's very busy with that. But while he's over near the army, he starts hearing about what's going on, and he starts asking questions. Have you ever been in that space where everyone's just doing what they always do and nobody's asking, like, why do we do this? Like, is there a purpose to this? What he starts asking questions. And in fact, his brothers kind of, get after him saying, why are you doing that? And he's like, I'm just asking questions. And he comes to the attention of King Saul. And he says, look, I think I can fight this guy. And of course, Saul, we know that he's the voice of personality. He tells him, oh, no, there's no way that you could do that because XYZ, he's so big, yada, all those kind of outer world things. And David speaks his truth, which is based on his faith in God as he sees God. And he explains, hey, when I'm watching over my sheep, I've killed lions, I've killed bears, and I've got God at my back. I can do this. So it's really important to notice that through every step of this story, David always references God first before he takes any action. And in conversations, that's the first thing he talks about is his faith. So think about the situation that's been coming to mind for you. And ask yourself, when it comes to that situation, how did the voice of your faith differ from the voice that comes from your ego or your brain? And what would it be like if you were like David and got curious and started asking questions, started questioning your pre-programmed answers about how we always do it, how it's done, all those kinds of things. What if you referenced your faith, however you phrase that, faith first, rather than referencing things in the outer world? How would that be? So next up in the story, King Saul agrees to let David fight and says, oh, here are the tools that you need. And he gives David his own armor and his own weapons and things like that. And David, okay, tries them on. And it's like he can't even walk. He can't carry this stuff. It's not his. It doesn't fit him. So this is a really key, interesting part to this story too. So think again of yourself, of this situation that you are contemplating. Have there been times in your life where, because that's the way it's done, you automatically sought out advice and tools and resources from other sources without stopping to check in with your own intuition and your own wisdom? How much do you listen to sources outside yourself? And how well do you pay attention to your own wisdom? Do you even recognize that you have limitless wisdom at your disposal? Well, David does, and he does without question. So next up in the story, of course, is he goes out into the valley to face Goliath. They say that he picks up 5 smooth stones. There's the number 5. Metaphysically, the number 5 indicates an energy of change. Change is coming. We're ready to make some change now. And of course, we know that when David steps out into the battlefield, Goliath starts with his trash talking, right? Just starts right off calling names and taunting. And have you noticed how when you begin to make a change, the first thing that happens is you often meet with resistance, right? The resistance might be from others or from circumstances. It's like, oh, I'm going to have to figure out a way around this. But it could be also from your own brain, right? Questioning like, oh, it didn't work before, so you should just quit. You know, you're not smart enough. You're not good enough. What kind of taunting might show up in your mind when you're trying to accomplish something like change a long embedded habit or shift out of one situation to another? Your brain really likes the comfort zone because it feels safe, and your actual brain will encourage you to just turn back and stay comfortable. So it takes a lot of dedication and faith. So ask yourself, how well do you stand in your truth and push back against the taunting that can show up? David does this really well. He does the same thing that he does throughout the whole story, is he talks about his faith. And that's where he starts from. And then he moves into action. So he takes a stone from his bag. He flings that stone from his slingshot, striking Goliath in the forehead deep. What scripture says is the stone sank into his forehead. So from here, I'd like to look at Unity's 12 powers. Now, we did a whole year of 1 per month of the 12 powers at Unity of Fredericksburg. So I'm expecting a lot of you are like, oh, yeah, I know about that. So the forehead is the location of a whole bunch of powers: imagination, understanding, and will. And when it's time for you to make a change in your life, first you need to start by engaging that imagination. Get curious. Ask questions like David does. Begin to dream of a new way of being. How will my life be if I can set aside this pattern that I've had for so many years? Next up, you must come to an understanding of your circumstances. That kind of understanding that tells you, this will no longer work. It's time to move on, to really understand that. And then you can move into the space of will, which is making the choice to make change. Now, behind those 3 powers, in the center of the head, is your power of faith. So faith has got your back. Faith is behind all of these powers, holding and supporting them, and allowing you to perceive the truth, even when you don't see it in your outer circumstances yet, but you can believe it from your power of faith. So take a moment and imagine in front of you whatever the Goliath is that shows up for you or showed up for you around a particular circumstance, whatever that obstacle might be. It might be from your own beliefs. It might be thoughts that come up that tell you you're not worthy. It might be disruptive feelings. And imagine yourself as David. Step one, ground yourself in your belief, your source, and remain firmly grounded in that. And from that space, you can deliver a blow to those Goliath thoughts and beliefs and clear them out of your consciousness. Huzzah! Well done. So when we approach this old story in this way, it's much more than an old fable about a giant and a young man. This is a story of you overcoming obstacles in your life. Whether they're obstacles of circumstance, of your own thoughts, feelings. This is a story that guides you into a fully embodied awareness of your own power, to remain grounded, to claim your good, even when you can't see it yet, and sweep away any noise or trash talk that gets in the way. This is a story about your faith and the power your faith has to hold you steady. So my title for today, I'm finally getting around to it, is called Breaking Open from Within, because of course, we're talking about these outer characters, but this is all activity happening in your own consciousness. And this is an opportunity for you to break out of something you've been stuck in for a long time, and to do it with joy and energy and zeal, which is also a power that's very nearby, kind of at the base of the brain, enthusiasm coming forward through this whole process. So we're going to take all this, my friends, and move into a time of meditation. So I encourage you to quiet the mind, open the heart, focus on the breath so that this practice is grounded in your body as well. I'd like to ask you to bring to mind the color blue. Two different shades of the color blue, light blue for that energy of your imagination, and a deeper royal blue for that power of your faith. And I'd encourage you to imagine all the aspects of your life, your health, your relationships, your sense of purpose, your sense of prosperity, and just bathe every aspect of your life in these wonderful shades of blue, like blue waves, like the image we see on the screen of waves upon the shore. Just bathe everything in that blue energy. Also bring to mind the colors of silver and gold. Gold is for the power of understanding, and silver is the power of will. And these are bright and precious energies, kind of like swords of consciousness that can cut off and separate from you things that no longer serve your highest good. And they're also metallic, so they have strength and firmness that can hold you steady under all circumstances. So I want you to take a few moments in the stillness and just be in that space where you have reflected on your life circumstances, and you're now bathing those in these wonderful colors of blue and gold and silver. And we'll move into the stillness together for a few moments right now. And as we begin to bring our attention back to the current moment, I'd like to encourage you to imagine yourself standing tall and steady in the midst of whatever circumstances are coming around. You hold steady. You hold steady, identifying with that core of your being, staying centered, claiming your good, seeing your good with your inner eyes of wisdom rather than your outer eyes, and doing all of this in joy and enthusiasm. And we close this time of meditation, as we always do with prayer and meditation, with gratitude. So if you would say with me 3 times, I am grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful. And so it is. Amen. Now I'm going to hand it back to my friend Chris.
Thanks for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation. Support our ministry with your financial donation.